Hi, it's Russ from Pro Tools Expert, and I've got myself a copy of Darklight IIx, which is inspired, of course, by the Fairlight, which was around in the early 80s. Now, I'm old enough, 46, and I'm old enough to remember this very, very product. And as it says, it was about $100,000 when it came out. And it was kind of the first sampler that had a sequencer built in, kind of the first workstation, almost the first DAW. Of course, you couldn't record audio in it, but they've done another great job of creating this. So you'll need UVI Workstation 2.0.6, which is a free download, and then you can use it as the player for this. So it's got 3 different pages. It's got the P, the B, and the U page, and one of them is a sequencer, and one of them is the Fairlight sounds, and one of them is the drum machine. So let's open one up first, and we're going to open up the bass section of this. And then, as you can see, you get a lovely GUI, as they call them, GUI, if you're a Brit. But there is the layout straight away, kind of with a nod to the original Fairlight screen. And so here's a sound. As you can see, it's very grainy, and they will always work grainy. So then you can go through and you can choose all sorts of sounds. There's all the bass sounds. If we go for, let's try another one around electric, see how that is. And then we could do things. We've got ADSR, which is the envelope side of it. What's really cool is even the loop sound is crappy as they were in the early days. And when I say crappy, nothing like we have today. Remember, this is a nod to a synth of the mid-80s and a sample of the mid-80s. So it's, in terms of sound, you're getting the authentic sound. And even the loops. I remember when loops used to sound like that on S900s or even on the Fairlight. So we've got, say, the envelope, then a filter. Low pass, band pass, and high pass. Obviously, they work in different ways. Take the envelope off it for a second. Because we're going to have a filter envelope, you can see it there. So, add resin. Nice filter there, nice filter there. So then we've got a filter envelope, we've got the mod wheel controls, a pitch envelope, got a driver mount as well. And then you've got the stereo settings as well, which are very similar in all the other plugins. So a quick show and tell of some of the sounds. So we can go through them that way, or we can come back out to loading them here by double clicking. So of course, areas that people are going to ask, what is it like, is things like the Fairlight voices. Here's the classic R's that you would have heard on. Sounds of the 80s. Of course, we've got a reverb and a delay and a bit crusher built in. And a phaser. Let's get another sound up. You hear that sound on things like the Pet Shop Boys and things like that. So it's got, as I say, a huge section of sounds in it. And I show you very early pianos, and this makes me laugh because this is what the early sample pianos would sound like. And there's a basic grand. Let's try that one. We'd be appalled if our sampler sounded like that these days, but it's... But that's the sound of the 80s, so they've really faithfully reproduced that. They're not trying to make it sound like a modern sampler. They're trying to make it sound as the Fairlight did. So there is the section that they call the, come back here again, the P section. Then we have the B section, so we could load that in instead. And that will give us the original sequencer. So you go to C3 and you can play the rhythms. And actually I have to say, it sounds really like the 80s sound. So we go to something like this. so many sounds of the 80s that sounded like that, and songs. You probably coming back to the sounds that you had at that point, and of course you can then sequence them yourself. Just by clicking on there, filter them. Which is nice. You can load a different sound in any of these sections if you want. Just come through here and we go for a snare instead. Here they are, the snares are down here. So sweet. Let's play you a couple more parts. So we go to some very cool sounds, but there's something endearing, and there's actually something quite energetic about the sound of that period. So some reggae stuff. So there's some really cool stuff. Let's try this one. They're just really edgy. Excuse me for knocking my mic there. They're really edgy sounds there, which are really, really cool. So then we have the third section then, which is a really cool sequencer. We'll just load that in the U section, and you've got a three-way sequencer. And some of the presets, straight away, there's a Depeche Mode kind of nod to those guys. Very, very nice. And then you can go through and program it yourself and change it. That one's playing the bass sound, and then this one is playing the synth. Take the steps up a bit higher. Closing the gate time down. Change the sound, actually, we could do as well. Go through to... and we'll have that. I'll put those on the 16, actually, it sounds even nicer. Very 80s. And then so you could just... I love it. It's really sweet, really nice. Of course, you could save anything as well. We've got reverb and effects, and we've got filters there in again. Let's just try a few more just to show you them in action. Let's try something else. Let's go for human. Very craft work. Now here's where it gets cool, because what you can then do, because it's multi-timbral, the UVI workstation, you can come in here, and we can go in, and we can then go to Darklight, and we go to the B section, and we now have in here, we change this channel to channel 1, or we could use multi-channels in a sequencer. Let's close that, and then we can come out to here in its... let's try that to a different thing. the reason that stopped there is because I'm playing C3 as my sequence to trigger. Of course, you could keep that on and keep that playing all the time. But you get the point. So we can use it multi-timbrally. Then we could go to another 3-pipe position here, and we could choose the actual sound of something like strings. And we'll go for Fairlight strings in there. And that could be in as well. But of course, at the moment, I'm playing it off one keyboard. But you get the point. Put this into a sequencer and then you've got yourself a nice powerful 80s workstation. You've got the synth and you have got the, let me just close that again so I can come back to it. You've got the synth then and the drum machine and the arpeggiator. So there we are, and I think it's price-wise, it's. I did respond to UVI and say that some of these were quite expensive to buy as one-offs because you might want to use this on a rare occasion, but not all the time, and some of them were quite expensive in the past. So I think they've had a listen, and they're sort of trying to bring them in on price. So check out their site at the moment because there's some deals going on their site for some of these. But I think it's a great plugin, and I think if you really want to get a sound of the Fairlight from the 80s, then you're not going to go wrong getting hold of this. So go over to their site and check it out. It gets a thumbs up from me, and you know what? I think for anybody that really wants to recreate the sound of the 80s, you're not going to go wrong getting the Darklight 2 from UVI Workstation. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again soon.